read the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you describe the Listen to the Earth project to people who know nothing about it?
It's just very difficult to explain to people in a succinct manner.
You can't sum it up in one sentence. I found that.
I'm going to start with where we went before I try and explain why we went.
I literally, when I try and explain it to people, it's hard to actually explain it because it's a thing where you almost have to be there to understand it. Like
for me, I always start with kind of the premise that it's a Holocaust education program.
It's like really about the history.
You come back, but you've got all this knowledge. You've got more knowledge than a lot of people that haven't been there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you said as well. You know, there's only so much you can take out of history books. There's only so much somebody can say.
Yeah, because I think from a picture in a textbook from school, it doesn't show how big and how vast.
Doesn't do it justice.
It doesn't do. You don't realise until you're actually stood there, and then when you're stood where pictures were taken.
Yeah.
It is such an enlightening experience, and like not just going to Auschwitz, but being around people that also are. I don't know, just being surrounded by people that you feel comfortable with.
It goes deeper than a trip. With people, doesn't it?
I found that,
I didn't realise what it was going to be like until I actually got there. And it was just, you know, like you said before, like words can't really describe.
Mm-hmm. The whole, you know, remembering everything that we did behind the scenes, not just visiting the camps, but a lot of the kind of the cohesive work we were doing. To kind of it was quite amazing, really, because we were somewhere that felt really isolating and, you know, really cold and really dark. But I felt nothing but love going around that camp because we was, you know, I think everyone felt that, and we really did come together as a group.
What do the words "listen to the earth" mean to you?
That phrase has kind of evolved.
Yeah.
I think as time's gone on, and kind of rather than it becoming a thing that's relevant to my relationship with Auschwitz and Birkenau, it's become relevant to me and everything else, and it's just slotted in different parts.
Yeah, I think that kind of, for me, listen to the earth, it's like listening to, you know, the stories before you and what happened, but also kind of like a conscious reminder to keep that introspective kind of curiosity, to keep, you know, looking within.
We were walking round and people were literally looking at the floor going, I'm standing in the spaces where this stuff happened.
Yeah, and it's like the Earth's like got a story to tell there, and I think that's probably the reason that everything's still there as it was.
Just stopping and listening and taking that moment and not judging and not being quick to respond and not using my experience to cloud what I'm doing in the future, but just, you know, there are paths and there are journeys that have walked here before me.
It's just the whole fact that this all happened, I can't get my head around it. I mean, it just... I tried putting myself in like, we're stood where all this happened. Like, that's so, like, hard to get your head around. Because now we're looking at it in a day with a blue sky, the sun's shining, people are walking around, like, without being scared. And you just think, this was a place of, like, absolute horror. This was a place of absolute... People walked where we've walked and were absolutely terrified.
When you look back on the project, what memories are the first to come to your mind?
There's just one memory that I always talk about, and I have to say it without getting overly emotional.
I was with a youth worker, and there was this one room which it's still in my mind.
We were in Auschwitz and one of the rooms, and we talk about, it's one of those life-changing things for young people. They come back a new person.
We walked in, and there was wheelchairs, crutches, and it knocked me sick, and I just said, look, I need to leave this room because I could not stay in there. It was just horrifying.
He came up to me and it was the hardest answering question that I've ever had to probably answer ever, and I just needed a minute. It just got, getting emotional. I
said to youth worker, does that mean that, you know, people who I knew would have got killed? And she's like, and it was just, it's still I can't describe it really.
I just had to go away and have a minute, and I just looked out the window and just said to, I remember saying to you, Jodie, just give me a minute, I just need to get myself together, because that was the hardest answer I ever give. And all of a sudden, the same young person just came up and went like this.
There's that wall of pictures, and the first time we went, where we were asked to stand in front of it and find a face that you connected with, and I think that stopped us all in our tracks at that point.
There was a photo in one of the rooms, so I think we was at Auschwitz, not Birkenau, and there was this photo, and there was this dead young girl. I'm just getting upset now. And she just reminded me of my little cousin, so I was so, because you can think that's your family member, and they're so tiny and so innocent, and you just think, how can somebody, do that to someone?
There's like two things that I remember. The room full of the luggage and the suitcases, the shoes as well.
The shoes, yeah.
Because you can't put, like, when you say 6 million, it's just something that, it's one of those things where it's awful, but you become desensitized to it. But then when you see all those shoes, that, like, those are like human beings, and then you think about like who's walked in them shoes, what their dreams were, they were actual people.
One of my most vivid memories is kind of walking into the room full of hair and just absolutely breaking down and walking out and going, I can't go in there.
Mine was at Auschwitz with the glasses, when they thought it was just a room full of glasses. That really hit home.
It was a section that was dedicated to LGBTQ people, and I sort of, like, we've come so far since then, but it also made me realise that, like, now there's still things in my life that I changed myself to be with certain people or in certain places, and you have to remind yourself of that time and push yourself to challenge it still, because it's obviously nowhere near as bad as it was there or then, but
I mean, in some countries, like, I think in 70 countries it's still illegal, and I don't know the statistic off the top of my head, but it's still punishable by death, and like you say, it's still such a, I agree with you, it was such a poignant thing to see there, but to know that's not ended. What are some of the most important things you have learned from visiting Auschwitz and Birkenau?
I think I remember coming away and feeling this kind of like feeling of gratitude that I'd never felt before.
I felt like, really take everything you can appreciate it fully.
I think it really does put your own personal privilege into perspective, doesn't it? Yeah. In a way that very few other experiences, if any, can really do that.
Ever since that day, I remember walking out that room and going, wow, that, like, never taking anything for granted again, a completely different person. In one of the rooms, like, this massive conversation, and it was just about politics and social, like, and what was going on in the world, and that time there was like a massive Islamophobic rhetoric, so I felt lucky for what I had, but then also seeing these people who had all these hopes and dreams and didn't think that this would ever happen to them, and then it did happen to them. It was a real, like, you can't take the world for granted.
Who were the people that you met during the project that had the most impact on you?
I think the most influential person for me was well, not the most, but perhaps the first high impact person was meeting Mr. Brasser.
Absolutely, that's my one.
Was that yours?
Yeah.
He was a photographer who got captured and taken to Auschwitz or Birkenau, I can't remember which one, but basically he became the photographer for Dr. Joseph Mengele, who took all the pictures of his experiments and also took all the headshots, the front and the sides. And we met him and he spoke, and I just...
Not for 1 second did you think that whatever he was saying was not true?
I can't remember a time I've ever been in a room where literally everybody there, regardless of the fact that a lot of us were teenagers, which made it even more sort of impressive, that nobody, like, everybody was just so hanging on his every single word.
We had a lady she was called a righteous Gentile, so basically they housed a Jewish girl, like kept her from basically getting killed.
That was a really like quite special moment that we had with someone who had first-hand experience of what went on, and I feel like we had that real connection with her where she was opening it up to us. It was really special.
I felt quite lucky with that because, you know, I don't think we're going to have many years left where we can meet survivors anymore.
How important do you feel it is that young people visit the camps?
Very important.
I think the age we also went sort of teens and sort of late teens,
like that developmental stage. Yeah,
we were at the perfect age to you're forming your own opinions of the world.
Well,
and
we were at that age as well, weren't we?
Yeah.
These young people are the future. Like, they're the ones who are going to be leading the world soon. And I think that at that age, it's really important to teach them like to help them learn like the consequences of actions. They shouldn't have any prejudice and things like that.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a witness?
Being a witness isn't just simply witnessing.
Yeah, it, in a way, it like gives you a responsibility. Like,
it makes you part of it, doesn't it? If you're
Yeah.
a witness.
You don't want it to just disappear away from people's knowledge, because we need to learn from it, and we can't let people forget that it happened.
How would you complete the sentence? One day.
One day we'll go back.
Yeah, we will. One day the world will be a better place isn't good enough. We have to make it, and we have to start today.
One day, will we forget?
Oh, question. Yeah, that'd be horrible.
That is
if you think of it as like as a collective, one day will we forget, as in we, as in the world.
I just hope one day that we can all just respect each other and just, listen.
One day hatred will go away. That's what I'm hoping. But hatred won't be a thing anymore.
One day can change a life, or one day can make change.
I think one day this trip won't be needed.
I think maybe like one day at a time.
Do you have one, Sophie?
One day maybe like to keep the peace.
Yeah.
I'd say one day this could happen again.
Yeah. Which is really sad.
One day we will be each other's allies.
One day I hope to go back.
One day can change your whole outlook on life and what we experienced there in just, those days we were at the camp. They were like, you don't really remember, like days of your life fly by, you don't really remember, but those I vividly remember.
Every single one.
Yeah, so parts of those days you will forget, but I remember each area, like I have memories of each area we went to, and those memories are gonna stay with me forever. So that day, that one single day is gonna stay with me forever.
Yeah.